Oceangate, Stockton Rush, Part 11. Conclusion. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You have listened carefully to my run-through of a significant body of evidence about Stockton Rush and his life, focusing on information from his past, some of it favourable, some of it not favourable, observations from other people in the industry, particularly in relation to recent events, past instances of interactions that he's had. Now, remember, all individuals can do certain things which are similar. So a normal person, an empath, a narcissistic person, and a narcissist can all engage in a similar behaviour, but it is the driver behind that behaviour which is different. The empath is driven by their emotional empathy. A normal may also be driven by their emotional empathy, but only towards a certain group. A narcissistic person is driven more by self-interest, but they operate with limited emotional empathy. A narcissist, as you know, is governed by the prime aims. Accordingly, a normal and a narcissist could engage in similar behaviours, but there's completely different drivers behind what they are doing. It's also worth reminding you again that a particular behaviour, which is poor in nature, would be viewed as perhaps morally reprehensible, does not automatically make somebody a narcissist. Just because somebody behaves in a way which is similar to what a narcissist does, that one-off instance doesn't mean that that's what they are. Non-narcissists can behave in a similar way and will often do so as a consequence of their diminution of emotional empathy occasioned by an external stressor. It's very important to make that point. What's also important is for people to realize that just because somebody is a narcissist, that doesn't mean that they are an evil individual, but indeed that someone is a narcissist could do things which are viewed as benevolent and kind, brave and dashing. So, for instance, a description of Mr. Rush could be that he was a brave pioneer. There's no doubt about it that he was. He was engaged in a pioneering design using carbon fibre. He was brave because he was getting in a small vessel and going down to significant depths with huge amounts of pressure, with considerable risks to life and limb. To do so would be brave. A normal person could engage as a brave pioneer, and so could a narcissist. Just because you view that person as brave and pioneering doesn't mean that they're not a narcissist. You could describe somebody as being benevolent and kind towards others. A narcissist can do that through the appearance of the facade. So remember, certain descriptions of that nature are actually unhelpful because they can apply to both narcissists and non-narcissists. And instead, what we must look at is the range of behaviours that go behind what is being said and what is being done. And that is what we have done with Stockton Rush. Mr. Rush shows a significant sense of entitlement. He's tight with money. He cut corners. He orders people around. He expects them to respond immediately to what he wants. He believes that he knows best. He exhibits greed. He's somewhat self-absorbed. He demonstrates that he believes that it's appropriate in the name of innovation to cut corners. His behaviour has shown an overwhelming lack of accountability. He has told lies, although he won't recognise them necessarily as such. There were issues with drugs, which is an abrogation of responsibility in the past. There doesn't appear to be a repeat in that regard, but nevertheless there was the use of drugs and the possession of the same. He's dismissive of safety. He really, repeatedly, on numerous occasions, poo-poos it. He ignored warnings, showing a lack of accountability. He doesn't offer any real emotional support to people. He's very matter-of-fact about things. He failed to repay monies that were owed to the Hagel couple. He had no regard, for instance, for rescue costs that would be incurred as a consequence of his enterprise. He engaged in DUI driving in the past. He doesn't look to salvage relationships, witness the way that former employees have been treated and members of the scientific community that he operates with. He issues no apology. He never sees that it's his fault. There's significant evidence of grandiosity. He engages in showmanship. He likes to be seen and interviewed and photographed. He clearly thinks that he's better than he actually is. He has an air of invincibility about him. He seriously believes that he's indestructible. He's prone to exaggeration. There's a degree of vanity about the man. He believes that although he is clever, he thinks of himself as even cleverer than he actually is. We see the grandiosity in language that's used, for instance, talking about people as mission specialists. There's a degree of magical thinking. He regards himself as able to be an underwater astronaut that isn't going to be affected by the environment, a very hostile and dangerous one, simply because his invention will keep everybody safe. There's significant evidence of haughty behaviours. He's dismissive of those that criticise him. He shows an arrogance with regard to gambling with the lives of other people. He believes that he's always right, witnesses exchanges with people. He's a poor listener. He does not exhibit patience. He operates with a closed mind. His treatment of the safety expert, for instance, is demonstrative of a haughty approach. There is significant evidence of manipulative behaviour. This doesn't necessarily come to the fore as much as it might do in other instances, because a lot of the information that has been provided portrays him either as a good friend or it's within the business context. We've not heard a lot, for instance, about his nature of his interpersonal relationship with his wife, but we do see something of the interpersonal relationships that he's had with former colleagues, journalists, members of the scientific fraternity. He engages in flattery, future faking, triangulation with object, triangulation with person, promised gain, invalidation, belittlement, denial, provocation, blame-shifting, argumentativeness, and deflection. He has boundary recognition issues, for instance, the way that he treats his paying customers as mission specialists who have to muck in and do things. He also had a predatory approach with regard to signing people up. He shows some significant aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. He operates with a facade of superiority. He knows better. He's the best. He clearly treats individuals as an extension of himself. There's character trait acquisition. He exhibits black and white thinking. He shows a need to assert control over people, and he demonstrates a response to perceived threats to that control. There's objectification. Witness the way that he talks about the people on the outside when they're on the inside of the submersible. He compartmentalizes. He engages in hoovering with regard to the way that he attempts to assert control over individuals. Accordingly, this is an individual who played fast and loose with the lives of others. He placed no value in those lives. It was all about him. He saw himself as indestructible. He was the one that was the pioneer. And of course, one can engage in what might be adrenaline pursuits, but do so with safety, which would show accountability, which would militate against a sense of entitlement. He didn't. He saw himself as the pioneering underwater astronaut that was indestructible, purely as a consequence of his own ideas, that he saw no need to be checked, that he saw no need to be regulated, and that where anybody else pointed out the flaws and problems with his process, he rejected them and did so in a dismissive and haughty manner. Stockton Rush exhibits a significant sense of entitlement in the behaviours. There's an overwhelming lack of accountability. There is significant grandiosity, some magical thinking, significant evidence of haughty behaviours, significant evidence of manipulative behaviour, some boundary recognition issues, significant aspects of the narcissistic dynamic, and he's absent emotional empathy. He took people in a substandard submersible, believing that there was no way that there would be a problem. He would have people risking their lives to rescue them as a consequence of his own haphazard behaviour, although he never saw it as such. He's preoccupied with his own success, dismissive and haughty of those that would criticize him. He believes that he's special, that he is the pioneer of the underwater world, and that nothing can harm him. And therefore, ultimately, it's quite clear that Stockton Rush was a narcissist. It's also worth adding that there are some potential antisocial behaviours there which could point towards psychopathy. However, there is insufficient evidence to make a finding of that regard, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was additional information that was supplied to me, perhaps from more personal sources, that would support a finding that he was actually a narcissistic psychopath. However, on the evidence that is available, it is clear that he is a narcissist. This has been a detailed examination, and I'd appreciate it if you would show your appreciation by ensuring that all sections have been liked and that you share this outcome as widely as you possibly can to help people understand more about narcissism and for those that are interested in Stockton Rush. If you're so minded as well, you may wish to show super thanks by making a donation to the Ultra to the Dirts Fund. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.